Hey guys, it's Alexa again, and you're watching Titanic. There are thousands of spooky places around the world that inspire terror and make the imagination run wild. The ones we've compiled right here are definitely no exception. From sites affected by terrible accidents to a ship left to break apart and slowly fall to the bottom of the ocean, these places are sure to make your hair stand on end. Go ahead, grab your blankets, turn off the lights, and make sure you're not alone. These are the creepiest abandoned places around the world. Belchaton Monument. This giant flying saucer-shaped monument was built on the famed Belchaton Peak and is also known as the Monument House of the Bulgarian Communist Party. The building of this strange structure began on January 23, 1974, and it was finally opened on August 23, 1981. It was carried out under Georgy Stolov and commemorated a secret meeting at the location in 1891, in which an organized socialist movement was assembled. This movement led to the formation of the Bulgarian Social Democratic Party, which preceded the Bulgarian Communist Party. The monument was used up until 1989, but was stopped as the decline of the Belchaton movement declined, and by the late 1990s and early 2000s, looters had all but stripped the monument to bones. The roof was pretty laid bare, and the elements entered the monument over the coming years. In its decaying state, it drew the attention of media and visitors from around the world. The flying saucer-looking monument became a favorite place to explore, take pictures, and steal from, and today still stands unused. It's creepy, magnificent, and almost out of this world in every way. Sorrento Abandoned Mill. The woods of Italy hold a big secret, the Valley of the Mills. This flour mills building dates back as far as the 13th century and was closed in 1866 after the construction of the Tasso Square. The event further isolated the mill from the sea, and the humidity in the area increased, making the mill wholly impractical. The building wasn't entirely abandoned until the 1940s, but when it finally was, it was left to nature for reclamation. And reclaimed nature has. The buildings and the gorge are hardly visible these days underneath the blanket of plants that have overtaken them. These days, the spot is extremely popular with hikers, and if you can get past the creepy factor, it's really quite beautiful. It's crazy to imagine that the place was once flooded with workers and the production of pasta, but now sits in ruin. SS America. Famed naval architect William Francis Gibbs designed this gigantic ship for the United States lines. It was built in 1940 and had a life of 54 years of service before becoming wrecked on the Playa del Garci, which is found in the Canary Islands. She had many names as she sailed the open seas, including SS Australis, SS Italis, USS West Point, SS Noga, SS American Star, and SS Alfredos. She served most of her time as the SS America as a passenger liner, but was finally run aground as the SS American Star. The wreck happened on January 18, 1994, and there she's remained ever since. Pieces of the ship broke off over time, and as of 2007, the keel and a small section of the bow remained visible at low tide. By 2013, it was reported that none of the vessel was still visible on Google Maps. This wreck serves as a reminder of the great power of the sea and the ability of it to eventually claim even the most giant man-made objects. Belitz Heilstätten. This creepy hospital complex is found near Berlin, in a town famed for its asparagus, called Belitz. It was initially designed to be a sanatorium, but from the First World War until 1945, it became a military hospital for the Imperial German Army. The Führer himself once recuperated here after being injured in the Battle of the Somme. Then, in 1945, the Red Army took over the facility, and it stayed a Soviet military hospital, even after the German reunification, until 1995. The Russians eventually withdrew and left the hospital, which many attempted to privatize, but most of the attempts failed. Some areas of the complex stayed in operation as a research center for Parkinson's disease and as a neurological rehabilitation center, and it remains so. The other abandoned parts of the complex were not secured, and they now have the creepy feeling of a ghost town, and numerous movies have shot here to use the derelict, broken-down buildings as sets. Orpheum Theater. This genuinely creepy old theater is found in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and is thought to be the second oldest Orpheum Theater, behind the one in Los Angeles. It was initially named the Majestic Opera House and was opened on April 15, 1912, which is, coincidentally, the same day the Titanic sank. It was owned by the French Sharpshooters Club of New Bedford and held a ballroom and armored shooting range. It was a place that hosted soldiers from both world wars to train. Following the wars, it was leased out to Orpheum Theaters from Boston, and the name was changed. At the theater, vaudeville shows were hosted, but once those began declining in popularity, the theater decided to play movies. In 1958 through 1959, it was closed and was then only used for special events before the French Sharpshooters Club sold it off altogether in 1962. As of now, the back of the building houses a supermarket, but the rest is empty and is privately owned. There are plans to restore the old theater, but right now it's empty and eerie, and there are rumors that it could be haunted. Pavlovs Russia. There is a hidden, spooky nuclear submarine base near Pavlovs Russia that construction began in the 1960s and stopped in the 1980s. The base is thought to be where Soviets would have sent their subs for protection if the Cold War broke into all-out nuclear war, and there are thoughts that it could still be finished and used today. It consists of two main, extremely large parallel tunnels, which are joined together by a series of smaller tunnels. One of the large tunnels measures 19 meters wide and 450 meters long. However, satellite measurements put it closer to 650 meters in length. The other tunnels measure 8 meters wide, 10 to 12 meters high, and 225 meters long. These are easily large enough for the storage of many submarines, and the smaller tunnels are large enough for subs to travel through to get to the main tunnels. It is mainly inaccessible, though, considering it's on an active naval base and is reasonably strongly guarded. Can you imagine being down in these tunnels at night? No thanks. Pripyat. These days, it's hard not to know of this abandoned Ukrainian city. It's near the site of where the famed Chernobyl disaster occurred in April of 1986, and it's been abandoned ever since. There's a good reason for that abandonment, too. The radiation levels reached an incredible 20,000 roentgens per hour in the worst-hit areas in the reactor building. The lethal dose is 500 in 5 hours, so some unprotected workers were poisoned with a lethal dose in less than a minute. Pripyat didn't receive an evacuation order until almost 36 hours after the reactor went nuclear, and by then it was too late for many. Considering the radiation levels were so high and stayed so high for such a long time, it's estimated that the Chernobyl area and parts of Pripyat won't be safe again for 20,000 years. The entire area is the definition of a ghost town due to what happened there, and it's one of the creepiest places on our list. Nagato. Nagato is a village in Japan where, as residents slowly make their way into the afterlife or leave, they're replaced by dolls that represent them. Nagato is tucked back in the valleys of Shikoku, Japan, and is a remote village which many abandon in search of work. In Nagato, there's not even so much as a store, so there's little reason for anyone to move in. Thus, the population continuously shrinks. Ayano Tsukimi, a resident of Nagato, felt sadness at the steady decline in population and decided to begin making dolls to take the places of those who leave. The idea came from a time in which she planted seeds, and those seeds failed to grow, so she decided to make a scarecrow that looked like her father, and from this simple idea, a whole craft was born. The dolls are made with old clothes, straw, and fabric, and you can actually visit the village virtually on Google Maps and see them for yourself. There's also a documentary called The Valley of Dolls, which highlights Tsukimi's work and Nagato itself. If you dislike dolls and ghost towns, this place may just be enough to creep you out. IM Cooling Tower. This power plant was built in 1921, and upon completion, it was one of the most massive coal-burning power plants in all of Belgium. There were portals in the base of the tower that let in wind, which would cool water that was let in. This released vast clouds of hot air and conducted energy into the area. By 1977, it became one of the primary sources of energy for the region and was capable of cooling down 480,000 gallons of water every minute. Then, a report in the early 2000s found that the plant was responsible for a whopping 10% of the CO2 emissions in Belgium, which understandably raised a lot of concerns. Greenpeace began protesting the plant in 2006, and by 2007, the plant was shut down. Then came the looters and thieves who looted scrap metal and other materials from the plant, but it is now protected part-time by security. It's basically been left to the elements at this point and draws tourists and urban explorers from all over the world. It's oddly beautiful and looks like it would be quite the place to visit. However, it has a certain eeriness to it that makes it seem like there may just be ghosts watching from incredible vantage points, waiting for a mishap. These definitely give us the chills. What about you? We still have one more creepy location to go, but first, would you like to visit any of these places? Which would you be daring enough to take on and explore yourself? We'd love to hear your choices in the comments below. Ghost Church. This truly scary church is found in Lukova, a northwestern Bohemian town. It's called the Church of Nine Ghosts, and it was built way back in the 14th century. They began holding services outside after a 1968 roof collapse during a funeral, which was seen as a bad omen, and who can blame people for thinking that? The church was eventually restored, and some ghostly inhabitants were added inside. An artist named Jakub Hadrava was commissioned to design what is called an art installation. He said that the figures represent the ghosts of former Sudeten German parishioners that used to go to the church every Sunday before the Second World War. The installation was made in 2014, and the hope was that it would bring more tourism to the area, and it worked. People have shown up from all over the world to see these ghostly statues. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave us a like. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss out on any of our excellent videos, and why not go ahead and watch this video we picked out just for you.